Hello family, my name is Chris, I am your home gamer dad, and after finally completing at least one session for you guys featuring every one of the feature films from series 1 and 2 of Final Girl, plus our friend Krampus over here, I think for this video it'll be kind of fun to let you guys know my personal ranking for each killer and each location throughout the feature films. So yeah, this is just going to be the feature films. I'm not going to be including the vignettes, which are the birds and the zombies. I haven't played the zombies yet, so I wouldn't quite know where they would rank. Besides, I want this to be kind of a killer location combo as I go through it. I'm not ranking the feature film as a whole, but I am ranking each one individually within each number. There may be some that do share the same rank, but otherwise there are some of these that I like the killer better than the location or the location better than the killer. Before I begin, I do just want to emphasize this is all just my opinion. This is how I personally rank each one of the killers and locations throughout the first 2 seasons. Obviously, I can't wait for season 3 to come out and see where they all fall within the list and everything, but based on my personal experiences, my games, my connections with the various IPs that these feature films are based off of and everything like that, that's where I put some of these in terms of my ranking. Some may be higher, some may be lower compared to those of you out there. So it's okay. It's more than fine to have a different opinion. That's what makes it so great. That's what makes this amazing. You can cherry pick which one of these that you personally are attracted to, that you are drawn to, that you love the theme, that you love the idea and the concept for. Play it and enjoy it that way. Your number 1 could very well be my number 11. I don't know. It doesn't matter, because as long as you have it, as long as you're having fun and enjoying it every single time it hits the table, that's ultimately what matters. However, I do want to hear how you would personally rank yours. Actually, instead of just giving me the entire, you could give me a list of 11 all you want on killers and locations. But also, if you want to make it quicker, give me like your top 2 and your bottom 2. Give me your top tier and your bottom tier. Because I'm going to be honest with you, once I got to the middle of this list, it's a little gray because it kind of shifts around quite a bit depending on my mood, depending on how certain games go and everything like that. But regardless of anything, top 11 right here. It would have been 10, but you know, Krampus got to come in there and do what he does and like make things crazy. And we will start on the bottom because someone's got to fall there. So starting at rank number 11 out of all this, it actually is a shared spot for the killer and location from the same feature film. Nkanyamba and the Sacred Grove are both at my rank 11. It's just, there's something about this that just does not like, it's probably the hardest feature film out of all of them, in all honesty. Nkanyamba himself isn't really too terrible in terms of his like dark powers and like how he grows and everything through the bloodlust, but it's that crazy wrath chart that he has, that not only he has, but also the Sacred Grove has. The problem with the killer wrath and the divine wrath and everything is that there is no reprieve for the final girl whatsoever. That no matter what happens as it goes up the track, it gets worse. But even if it's all the way on the bottom of the track, it's still really terrible for the final girl. And I get it. That's kind of the whole purpose of the game. You're going into this like impossible no-win situation to try to come out on top. And yes, I have beaten Nkanyamba, but he is definitely the one that I have had the most tries against in order to finally get to a point where I can beat him. And just, you need things to go like absolutely perfect for you in order to like get everything to line up and things along that way. So it's just, he's more frustrating than anything. And I think that's kind of why Nkanyamba himself is on the bottom of the list. Same thing for the Sacred Grove. That location, just like the killer within it, is just frustrating. And when the two of them are combining together, oh my gosh, there's like, it's so hard and it's so annoying because you're like, get yourself to that point where you think you have this, you're right at the end and everything, and then all of a sudden something crazy cascades through each one of the wrath charts and you are like dead on the ground immediately. I wish that the Sacred Grove itself had divine intervention or divine help for your final girl from time to time. I think that would be awesome because some of the things about the later boxes and whatnot, and even a few in the earlier ones as well, occasionally, it doesn't happen often, it pops up every here and there, you get something that actually helps your final girl out and you feel like empowered and invigorated and like, oh my goodness, I could do this, and then you go forward. There is nothing like that from Nkanyamba. There's nothing like that in the Sacred Grove. And because of that, playing it feels like a chore and it just is so frustrating. But again, that's just my opinion from my experiences. All right, moving on to my number 10 killer, and that would actually be the complete opposite of Ingenyama, in my opinion, the Big Bad Wolf, who I look at as actually the easiest killer within the game. Now, I do enjoy his mechanic of hunting and then stalking or whatever it may be, or hunting. Yeah, I think it was stalk and hunter, track and stalk or something, whatever. One of them where he mostly just moves around the board, and then the other one when he actually like attacks and tries to, you know, eat or kill or whoever it is that's in his path and whatnot. And to be honest with you, for some reason, it's just much easier to deal with him doing stuff like that than it is other killers. Now, I actually have not lost against the Big Bad Wolf at all. Came close a few times. If you get that, what is it, that epic dark power where both of those things trigger at the same time, then it is a little bit dicey and whatnot, but even still, I would manage to pull out a win from there. Like, you could really lead him around the board, dropping certain things, and like the items within the area that you're in really help out a lot and whatnot, that you go over there, throw a bone over there, and the wolf will run over there. You can do whatever you got to do, and then head on back over in order to take him out. So it's just because he's, to my opinion, one of the easiest ones that I'll play him a few times, but I want something just like that mid-challenge between Ingenyama up here, Big Bad Wolf down here. You need something in the middle to make it like great challenge for you, but at the same time, not making it an easier win. My number 10 location is Station 2891 from the Organisms box. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I know The Thing. I do. I'm not a big fan of John Carpenter's The Thing or anything along that way. So I didn't like really connect with that box as much as some other people did and whatnot. Like, a lot of people think that's their favorite one overall. But I mean, Station 2891 is one of my least favorite locations, mainly because there is only one way out of there, which is through the helicopter, which in its own right is a bit of a frustrating thing to do because you need to spend time, which is a very precious resource, in order to possibly get your people out of the station before things go crazy. In addition to that, you got to move them around the outside, which that frostbite mechanic is awful. I've lost so many people so quickly to that frostbite mechanic that it's like, I can't afford all this movement and all these people and everything because it just comes in and takes them out so quickly. But then again, you get them to the helicopter and only 3 at a time can leave. So then what do you do with the rest of your victims that are just running around like crazy? So that one's a little bit more frustrating for me. I think the shed, the tool shed and everything where you get your items are a little bit far off to the side as well. Plus you as a final girl have to trudge through the snow again in order to get to like these good places with these good items, basically threatening frostbite along the way. So it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too, like the frostbite's annoying. Them leaving is a little bit annoying. The building itself is really cool in the way it's set up, but yeah, that's really the main reasons why that one is down lower on the list. Number 9 killer for me is the Poltergeist. And in the long run, the Poltergeist is very interesting because she is so different in how you handle her compared to any of the other killers. You can't do any damage to her because she's a ghost, obviously. You have to find Caroline, I believe it is, right? And then get her out of whatever location you are in order to be able to basically run away from the ghost. You never actually defeat the ghost. You just kind of grab her and run away. And then, you know, you can play a campaign where the ghost follows and everything along that ways. You can't quite use your conventional methods that you would with all of the other killers and whatnot to take her down, to fight her and like put stuff down to do damage to her. Like there's a lot of items within all of the locations that are like deal X damage to the killer and whatnot. Can't do that with the Poltergeist. All those items are like, you can't use them at all. They're a waste of an item. And a lot of it is also getting to those search locations and digging through as fast as you can, all of them, in order to hopefully find Caroline. It's like you have a 1 in 3 chance to pick it right. And if you're wrong, most other locations are like on a like complete opposite end of the board. It's so swingy. The Poltergeist to me is probably one of the most swingy villains within Final Girl because you could find Caroline immediately wherever you are and get out of there within a few turns, or you could be spending multiple turns trying to find her and have no idea where she is, and then the Poltergeist is just laying waste to everything. So it's some games are great, some are not, most are not. My number 9 location is Maple Lane from the Dr. Fright box. Maple Lane kind of falls into that same problem that I had with Station 2891 in that in order to get to the places that you need to get to, specifically the ones where you got to get items and whatnot, you got to spend time on a previous turn in order to gain permission to get into someone's house. And to me, that just feels like And I get it. I get the way it's a suburban area. You know, everyone doesn't trust you. You got to get in and whatnot. And of course, the event cards and the tarot cards do some fun stuff with these houses and whatnot. But it's just more or less like, I gotta go here. I gotta grab this card. I gotta make sure I have this card in my hand. I gotta make sure I roll well with it in order to even have the chance to get in order to get an item that I will need in order to fight Dr. Fright and whatnot, or whoever killer I have there, and, you know, running around the neighborhood. I do like on it how there are 4 different areas, the northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast, and each one could have different things happen. There's also 4 different item locations in there, so it's a little easier to find stuff, but just combining the 2 at number 9. Can you imagine the poltergeist running around Maple Lane? You got to find 4 different areas for Carolyn and asking people permission to go in to see if she's in the house. Man, that is probably one of the most difficult scenarios you can pull together. Number 8 on my killer is the organism. And once again, as I mentioned before, I know the thing. I've watched it, the original, the John Carpenter one, the sequel and all that. Like, I've seen the movies, but I'm just like, it just doesn't resonate with me. It's a cool, very, very cool movie. The video game from PlayStation 2 was wild in its own right, but the way that the organism works within the game is another one where it's like, oh, it stresses me out so much up until the point when the organism is revealed, because the bloodlust meter is going to keep going up and up and up, but there won't be a killer on the field. In addition to that, you don't know if you have 1 to deal with or 3, and it's like, that's why the organism to me is probably one of the more stressful feature films to play, because once things happen, it's a cascading immediate effect where just all the bad stuff happens all at once. Like, the bloodlust meter is going to go up and up and up, and as soon as an organism is revealed, it's going to flip over and all the bad things are going to happen in one shot. What I do like about the organism is the finale cards are more or less like timers of sorts. Like, if these conditions happen, it's an immediate game over. You're not powering up the creature or creatures any more than they already are, so you're able to kind of work with them a little bit better around the board, finding your items, finding your flamethrowers and things like that if you're in the station or wherever you are, and then fight them that way. They also don't all have a whole lot of health, so if you only get 1, that's not bad. Kill it, get rid of it, you win. But if you get 3 and they swarm you, you are in for a bad time. Number 8 on my location is Creech Manor, and the only reason this one is here is because I have had games where I have lost within basically the first or second turn because I got a terrible event right away. I think it was the one where it's like everybody jumps out a window or goes to a window and jumps at it, and it just so happens that however all of the victims were placed, a lot of them were close to windows, so like 4 or 5 people die before I even have a chance to go. So frustrating and so like, oh, come on, why is this here? Why is this so, why is the house doing this in a way? But regardless of that, the way that Creech Manor is set up is actually really cool in the way of like compared to the other ones, because it's a vertical house as compared to like going around on a map. I've had some epic wins on here where I found Carolyn in the attic and the helicopter was there and we flew away, which is awesome. And I've also seen a bunch of people play it by jumping out the window and just running away that way. So there is a lot of really fun things within Creech Manor, including all of the other spirits that live within there. But man, if you get an unlucky draw in the beginning, you might as well just reset right there. My number 7 killer is Dr. Fright. And of course, he is based off of Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. I love the way that they take the IPs and kind of morph them in the way that works great within Final Girl. It's their own creation, but you can definitely see where the influences are. And like, I really enjoy, and this is what I'm talking about, where it's like the middle of the pack here of the rankings can kind of go either way, because I really like Dr. Fright, but there are things that I really don't like about him as well. The things I really like are the awake and sleep mechanic within there, and that makes sense. If you're running around being awake, Dr. Fright can't hurt you. He can hurt other people, because ideally they could be asleep and whatnot, but you would need to fall asleep in order to be able to get into the dream world in order to be able to fight him. And you do that by taking your short or long rests. And I rarely ever use those cards, so it's nice having a feature film that kind of centers more around them, giving you a reason to use them, a reason to have them, so this way when you're ready to fight Dr. Fright, you go to sleep and you attack him. The problem that I have with it is when you're asleep, the boiler room cards. I am not a fan of these cards at all because there's no easy way to hold them. There's no good way to kind of grab them and shift them the way that you want to shift them and whatnot. I get it. I get the point behind it where you're walking through this boiler room and you're taking turns and you're shifting and there's the tension and whatnot, but it's just the fact that they're so fiddly in terms of holding them and then sliding them and getting them like in the right spot. And there's really no good way to do it. And more often than not, I find myself sliding and then everything either falls out of my hand or you get a little bit of a peek at something, just knowing what's coming up next and whatnot as you're trying to slide them correctly and everything. I feel like I'm getting a cramp in my hand as I'm going through those Boiler Room cards. I wish it was more something in the ways of, just flipping over cards on a deck in order to see if he's there, or even rolling dice and whatnot, because that's a big thing about this. But that would be the only thing that I would actually change about Dr. Fright. Everything else is really cool. His backstory, his design, and his just overall demeanor within the game. Number 7 location is Carnival of Blood. Oh my goodness, guys. I've had my biggest victim death in one turn because of Carnival of Blood, when everybody converged onto one spot and one of the stupid traps actually went off. I think that's the main mechanic of Carnival of Blood, are the traps. And those are things that are either within the terror deck or within the, the item decks themselves. And when a trap is sprung, all Hades breaks loose for sure. I think I had like 6 or 7 people die on me because of the saw trap that came up and just obliterated them all, which on one hand is fun. Like just seeing that happen. Like you watch a horror movie and you just see like the crazy amount of gore and destruction and everything. You're like, oh my God, you're freaking out and everything, but you're kind of laughing and enjoying it at the same time because it's a movie, it's fake, it's just what it is. But at the same time, as I'm playing the game, I then just see Geppetto go crazy because that's what I was playing against, with his powers and stats and everything. Dark power immediately go off, and this was like turn 2 and whatnot. And I'm like, how am I going to win this? How am I even going to survive this? And you go through, you do what you can, and you know, in situations like that, you kind of know what the ultimate result is going to be beforehand. And it's a little just annoying sometimes, I guess I can say, when you're 1 or 2 turns in and you're already like, there's no way I can win this. All right, let's just reset back to the beginning and try again, rather than feeling like, all right, maybe I have a chance. Maybe there's a way to get around this. Let's just keep going through and see where it turns out. So that's kind of why Carnival Blood's in the middle. But if I get a good set where I don't see many traps, or at least traps early where they're killing everybody, and I kind of do stuff and power up my girl before all the things start springing, then in its own right, I like it, I enjoy it, because then I can work around them a little bit better or use them to my advantage to hurt the killer, take them down, or just kind of work through that. Number 6 killer for me is the Ratchet Lady. And my problem with the Ratchet Lady is that I had such high hopes for her. Like, I was really excited to play her. I was like, oh my God, crazy, unethical nurse running around creating minions, which I'm not a big fan of minions in this. Like, they still confuse me in terms of what they can and cannot do. But regardless of anything, I really wanted to give her a shot because I wanted to try her setting, and 2, I think she was really cool in terms of her not having an upper health limit. I'm like, that would be awesome to see how high that would go. And let me tell you, it can get high. God, really? I think she was in the 20s in one of my games and whatnot. But yeah, I just going through it and just seeing her cards and her finale and her dark powers and everything like that, she was a little bit underwhelming overall. And once you're able to kind of get her into a corner and start beating on her and whatnot, you're able to take her down pretty quickly. The Ratchet Lady herself is fairly easy, but of course with her mechanic, it's her minions that you have to worry about. And if you don't attack them correctly, or if you don't deal with them the right way, then they can swarm you. And that's another one where you need to spend time, one of your most precious resources, and have a lot of luck in order to get a card to turn those minions that she has from crazy maniacs over back to your victims, and then you can save them and whatnot. So it's just kind of like risk versus reward thing about how many people are you bringing with you, and hopefully not many of them will turn into maniacs. So there's a lot of things I like about the Ratchet Lady, but overall I think her herself was just very like, okay, well that's pretty basic. That's kind of how that works. All right, cool, no problem. And just dealing with how much health she ultimately gets probably by the end of your game. Number 6 location is Camp Happy Trails. And really this is kind of in the middle of the list because that's exactly what it is. It's the midpoint of almost the entire series. Hans and Camp Happy Trails are your go-to runs at this point. And I like Camp Happy Trails. It is a great nostalgia runaround of kids running around a summer camp with some crazy thing trying to run around and kill them. But that's really all there is to it. There's no special rules. There's no additional components or anything like that. It's just you have all your same stuff that you have. It's very basic. It is one that I would recommend to anybody who's just starting out to this game. It's really easy. The problem that I have with Camp Happy Trails is, like most locations, if you have a poor setup and a really bad event, you could be starting at such a disadvantage that it's almost like, all right, well, should we even bother going from here? Is this even going to be worth it? Or I guess we'll take a turn or two, and then everyone just kind of dies. Like, there's one event where everybody who enters the lake immediately dies. If you have a bad setup where most of the people kind of get around the lake and whatnot, and then an event that pulls everyone into it, or just them panicking into the lake or whatever, you could have a cascading effect of like 2, 3, 4 victims dying right then and there, which, if you're playing against Hans, is really bad. You don't want Hans gaining that much power that fast. So it's the only thing that I have an issue with Camp Happy Trails. Otherwise, it's fun, it's decent, and definitely a great starting point for this game for new players. Number 5 killer for me is Geppetto, and he has a lot of the same issues that the Ratchet Lady has for me, and that would be dealing with his minions. Now, he ranks a little bit higher than the Ratchet Lady because I like his theme overall a little bit better than the Ratchet Lady. Like, I like her as herself and her concept, but Geppetto as his puppet master and living dolls, which has always frightened me and whatnot, just that kind of idea going into this and everything was like, oh my God, I can't wait to play this guy and see what it is. He was my number 1 that I wanted to play from the series, from series 1, I should say, from the get-go, because I wanted to see how that worked. I wanted to see how the minions function and everything like that. It's a little bit more complicated than I would have liked it to be, just because they're all on strings, so they can only be certain distances away, and he can move, but not that much. And like, there was a few edge cases that as I was playing through that I'm have to sit there and like, well, what would happen? Like, what logically would happen? How would this work, you know, in real life, quote unquote? And that was a little bit frustrating to deal with early on when I was kind of a newer player to the game, because that was like that was my second one I ever did on the channel. And that was also one of the first times I was like really experiencing myself with this game. So having stuff like that come up, having more advanced things happen so early was a little bit like, what do I do? But the more I play him and the more I understood him and the more that I know that once you hit the top of his rank, it doesn't keep going down and triggering the top thing over again. Yes, that happened in the playthrough and it caused a lot of panic and craziness. Don't do that. He became a lot easier. And also, like the Ratchet Lady, Geppetto himself is not that hard. It's just dealing with his minions. And I do like that you can beat them, but then they come back anyway. So number 5 location is Santa's Village. And this place is beautiful. Like, this is one of the coolest maps within the game itself. It is so bright. It is so cheery. And you just know as you run around, bad things are happening all over the place. You never would expect it to be inside of Santa's Village with his elves and whatnot for it. But that's actually kind of a reason why it's in the middle as well, because of the elf mechanic. It's so annoying. They make you lose time. I can't remember off the top of my head if you enter a space with 2 or more, or for every elf you lose time or something like that. But I just remember being like, oh God, I got to enter in this space with these annoying little elves and they're just going to rip the time away from me that I need in order to go and do other things. And just like, stop it, stop it, stop it. What is awesome though is that within the item deck, there are cards that mitigate this, that stop them from having you lose time, or at least a little bit here and there. So I'm glad that that was added in. And that's kind of one of those things I mentioned earlier where it'd be nice to have something within the map that helps the final girl kind of overcome some of the major negativities from it. The big thing about Santa's Village is the elves keep eating away your time. I can possibly find an item to make that stop happening, and that makes that overall experience in Santa's Village even more magical. So there you go, Santa's Village. Breaking into the top 4 with Krampus, and I just wanted him to be a little bit higher on the list. I wanted Geppetto and Ratchet Lady kind of to be more together because I feel like their minions for me are interchangeable in terms of where they would be on the list. Krampus is just really cool. I'm so glad that he exists within this game, even as a standalone and whatnot. And the way that he moves around the board and drops his presents and whatnot. But this is one of those things where, again, these presents are not all bad. It's a risk versus reward thing. And something like that is really exciting when playing this game because it changes the narrative of your game every time you play. It's not that you're finding something and you know something bad's going to happen regardless, so why even do the thing? If you open up a present and it's a gift from Santa, oh boy, you have now just like hit the jackpot. Yes, the elves can pick them up too, those little jerks, but still. It's the fact that there are things on the board that are possibly there in order to help you instead of just continuously hindering. And I think that's one of the coolest things that Krampus brings to the game with his present dropping mechanic and whatnot. Otherwise, that again, Krampus is just cool. Like, as you know, if someone of German descent and everything, learning about Krampus and whatnot, and seeing how, I guess, popular he's becoming within the past, like, you know, several years or whatnot, it's just a lot of fun. Number 4, location-wise, is Storybook Woods. And for me, even though the Big Bad Wolf ranks so low, I really liked his map. His map is the smallest one so far within the game, the least amount of spaces, but there's a lot of strategy to it. Like, you can only bring victims across bridges one at a time. There's a few bridges that appear throughout, you know, there's like a peninsula in the middle, and then around the outside are all your, is another mainland. But you look at it and you're like, okay, so strategically speaking, I could just kind of run around the sides here and then get rid of, you know, get everybody off to their, you know, escape the map and whatnot and power up your final girl. And anybody in the middle is my bait of sorts for the killer. So they can just be running around doing that, giving me enough time to do what I got to do. Now, I know that I'll be powering up and the killer will be powering up. And no matter where I run, most likely the killer will be able to get to me in one shot. But at the same time, you use that to your advantage. There's a lot more strategy to Storybook Woods than you think there is with a map so small. Plus, if you manage to get some of the amazing items within there, like the canaries or the raft or whatever, you know, there's a ton of different things in there. There's a lot of ways for you to be able to do damage to the killer in addition to you not only you just having a weapon in hand and whatnot. Okay, unless you're fighting the poltergeist, then it doesn't really matter. My number 3 spot is actually a shared spot from a killer and location from the same box Into the Void, the Evomorph as your killer, and then the USS Conrad for your location. The Evomorph himself is based off of the Alien franchise, which is one of my favorite franchises ever. I love seeing those movies and everything. Just some really amazing things that have been put out there. You know, so many cool moments within the Alien franchise, and seeing the Evomorph in this game and watching it grow from like the pupa state to like the mid state to the adult state, it vanishing up and off the board and everything, which can be a little weird sometimes. Like the Evomorph I've seen like have some edge cases to it, like I mentioned with Geppetto, where, all right, it's off the board, but this card wants me to do this. I don't think I do it right type deal. You got to go back and read through the instruction manuals and whatnot, or just kind of play it through one of the main ways that you would, the worst case scenario, the funniest case scenario, or just like as written type deal, and just do your best to interpret it. So I really like that about the Evomorph. A lot of great references to the movie within not only the Evomorph himself, but also aboard the USS Conrad. I love the Conrad because you need key cards in order to activate certain things. You can open up shafts to jump between rooms where the killer, I don't think the killer can follow you through there, so you'll be able to get away with them a lot faster. You can activate other functions of the ship, including blowing it up, which is amazing. Like, you can recreate some of those key moments that you remember from the movies within this. And I believe I did that during my playthrough as well. So there's so much that I love about it because, again, I connect more with the IP that this one is based on. So it resonates more with me as opposed to like the organism per se. So that's why both of these actually share the number 3 spot. My number 2 spot is actually another shared one, though the location in here, I occasionally jump between this and number 1 as well. We're looking at the Intruders as my number 2 killers that I rank them as, and then Wingard Cottage as my number 2 location, both of them from A Knock at the Door, the feature film that they're both from. The Intruders is awesome because it's 3 killers at once. And unlike the organism, where it could be from 1, 2, 3, and then once that's revealed, all hell breaks loose, the Intruders themselves are all on the board at the same time, and you actually watch them trigger from 1 to 1, depending on what tarot cards you pull and whatnot. And I think that's a really cool mechanic for just having multiple killers on the board at the same time. And it's fun to kind of like plan around it and whatnot, where it's like, oh, I got a guy over here, one over here, one over here. If I head up this way, they're not going to be taking their turn for a while, so this will move down and this one will move this way. So maybe I can ambush the guy up here and then take him down really quickly, get him off the board, and then run around the other way while the other two kind of come in. You could create some really fun narrative points as you manipulate where the killers are running around, setting traps, laying bait. Seeing that play through between all of the killers is a lot of fun for the intruders. It was one that when I went into it, I wasn't 100% sure how I would like this mechanic. I wasn't sure if this was going to be something that would be interesting to me or at least work well. It does. It works very well. As far as Wingard Cottage goes, I love the crafting mechanic. The crafting mechanic is another one of those things where it is something within the game that you need to be very careful and you're very strategic about how you play, how you move around, how you get to where you got to get to. But if you manage to collect the things that are required to build some of these weapons, you are crazy powerful with all of the stuff. I mean, some of it is as simple as like nails on a bat, but the Obliterator, I can't believe I built the Obliterator on camera. You get that in your possession and you can go and just unload on whatever killer is within your spot. Now, again, just based off of the Poltergeist, as I mentioned before, not a very good one to be here because all these weapons and everything you have are more for direct attack against whatever killer you're going up against. But at the same time, depending on which killer you go up against, you may have a different strategy about what item you will craft, which will be better off against that particular killer. And I think that is a really awesome way of like wanting you to get back into that map, to replay it again, to like get it down on the table, try a new weapon, try a new combination. How will it work against this killer? How will it work with that one? I love that particular setting for it. And then of course, just this random cabin in the woods that's being overtaken and whatnot. Always a classic setting as well. And my number one killer, as weird as this is, considering his location was way back where, is Hans. I chose Hans because Hans is your Jason Voorhees, your Michael Myers. I always enjoyed those type of movies better just because I don't know why. I liked watching those like big, hulking, crazy killers just run around, you know, doing what they do and then seeing how everyone else kind of reacts to them to figure out how to take down these beasts. It's just a cool IP that I've always remembered. I've always grown up. Jason Voorhees is like easily my favorite one of the classic 80 slasher movies and whatnot, you know, the killers that way. And seeing this guy like this, you know, Hans, is like, wow, that's amazing. In addition to that, Camp Happy Trails itself and Hans and whatnot, it's kind of like my go-to when showing somebody this game for the first time. This is your starter killer. This is the one that you should begin with because there is no, no mechanics, no changes to the game. It is just the base final girl in its own amazingness and whatnot, going up against Hans within his camp setting. And that's why he's number one, because I find myself playing him more than any of these other killers and locations in the game, because if I'm showing somebody this game for the first time, if I'm explaining to them how it works and like the mechanics and everything, that's where I go first. Hans and Laurie, gosh, I can't remember who the other final girl is and whatnot, at Camp Happy Trails is my default go-to for how to play this game and how you can appreciate this game for what it is. A single-player survival horror experience where you are the final girl trying to fight back and survive while everybody else falls around you. And my number one location is Wolf Asylum. Oh man, it's because of the pill mechanic. The pill mechanic within Wolf Asylum is amazing because guys, I did it in my playthrough, and if you guys ever have this, try it out for yourself or whatever, but if you manage to get yourself one of each color pill and you use that in order to gain one of those ultimate cards and whatnot, the final girls can do so many amazing things that, again, don't necessarily break the game at all. They really don't. But man, does it make you feel powerful. And I also like that is also a risk versus reward thing as well, because you could take pills at any time to do various positive effects for your final girl, but then you'd have to draw from this other deck of cards where negative things could come into play. And to me, that is an amazing balance. Unlike other ones that I mentioned before, where no matter what happens, you're just going to get trounced on, you know, all the bad things. Someplace like Wolf Asylum this is going to happen to you that's good, but prepare something that's going to be bad as well. And it's like, okay, mentally speaking, I am prepared for that. I'm going to go and do it. So I think that's why Wolf Asylum is my favorite location out of all of these current ones right now. Again, this does not include Series 3, obviously. I am still patiently waiting for that. But hopefully this ranking that I gave you guys give you a little bit more insight about my mindset and how I see each one of these films, how I go back to them individually, and just overall my thoughts and opinions on all of them as a whole. But there you have it, everybody. My ranking of the Final Girl Series 1 and 2 killers and locations, plus Krampus, minus the vignettes. Because again, I gotta play the zombies, see how they play and whatnot. And really the vignettes are just minions, which are fine. The birds were really a lot of fun and a lot more difficult to get through than I thought they were. But at the same time, I just want to kind of dive into the zombies and whatnot and see how they play and then figure out exactly where I would rank them overall. But I'd rather just do this because it was nice and even. One for each ranking number, one killer, one location per rank. Mine, of course, is going to be quite different from yours. So as I asked earlier in the video, I would love to hear what your list is. Mainly just give me your top 2 and your bottom 2 if you want to just go it that way, or you can list all 11 in your order as you wish. I personally haven't played too many mix and matching games, whether it be off camera. I haven't done any on camera yet, but that is something that is definitely going to happen within the future. That means we're not to miss that or any other Final Girl stuff that I will be putting out for you to enjoy. Be sure you are subscribed to the Home Gamer Dad. If you wish to support the channel even further, there are ways to do that down in the description section below. But in all honesty, your view, your like, your share, your comment, all of that amazing stuff where we can get here and talk about Final Girl, express our joy and love for this game and whatnot, how we do our narratives, how it could possibly frustrate us, how it does frustrate us, but how we jump back into it with a new mindset and a new fervor to be able to get in there and defeat the killer. Oh man, it makes me want to just play more and more and more. I love it so much, and it makes me even more excited for Series 3. In any event, until we hit that point, you guys take care of yourselves and each other. We are family forever, gaming together through any one of your favorite locations, through all of your favorite killers that you run around. I don't think I'm going to do a top ranking for Final Girls because I really haven't played them all yet. But, you know, that might be something I look into in the future as well. You guys let me know as well if there are any other type of ranking videos you would like to see me do in the future. I have some ideas for things outside of Final Girl, but we'll see how it goes. Until then, you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.